The Emergency Council chamber of the Galactic Federation buzzed with desperate voices speaking in dozens of languages. Ambassador Zixtal of the Valerian Empire clutched his crystalline communication device with 3 of his 4 hands while frantically gesturing with the 4th. His species had ruled vast territories for millennia, but today his usual composure had cracked like old plasteel. The Devourer fleet has consumed 17 systems in just 2 rotations, he announced to the assembled representatives. Our combined naval forces can barely slow them down. They adapt to our weapons faster than we can deploy new ones. The chamber fell silent except for the nervous chittering of the insectoid creche delegates. Even the normally boisterous Thurian warchiefs sat in stunned silence, their tusked faces grave with worry. The Devourer fleet represented something the galaxy had never seen before, a force of mechanical beings that consumed entire worlds to fuel their expansion. High Counselor Mirthak, an elderly amphibian whose species had mediated galactic conflicts for generations, raised her webbed hand. Our intelligence suggests the Devourers originated from the Void Sector. They've been dormant for thousands of years, but something has awakened them. Traditional diplomatic solutions appear impossible, they don't communicate, only consume. Ambassador Zixtal's eyes shifted nervously around the room. There is one possibility we haven't discussed. The humans. A collective intake of breath echoed through the chamber. The Thurian warchief Groknash slammed his massive fist on the table, causing several smaller delegates to jump. The humans? Those primitive newcomers who barely discovered faster-than-light travel 50 of their years ago? Primitive, perhaps, Zixtal replied carefully, but they've shown remarkable creativity in solving problems others consider impossible. Their military tactics during the Orion border conflict were unlike anything in our databases. Counselor Mirthak's throat sacs inflated with concern. The humans have a reputation for being unpredictable. Their methods often violate established galactic warfare protocols. Are we truly so desperate as to seek help from a species that hasn't even achieved Type 2 civilization status? The chamber erupted in arguments. The Crystalline Quartz collective representative's voice rang like chimes. Their technology is centuries behind ours. What could they possibly contribute against an enemy that has defeated our most advanced fleets? Zixtal waited for the noise to subside before continuing. I've studied human military history extensively since their first contact with our border patrol. They have a concept they call asymmetric warfare, using unconventional methods to defeat superior forces. In their ancient wars, small groups of humans repeatedly defeated much larger, better-equipped armies through innovation and determination. A snort of derision came from the Draconic Consortium's representative, a scale being whose species had conquered half their home galaxy before joining the Federation. Ancient history from a backwater planet means nothing against the Devourer's adaptive technology. Perhaps, Zixtal acknowledged, but consider this: in every major galactic conflict of the past 3 centuries, victories came through technological superiority or overwhelming numbers. The Devourers have both. They learn from each encounter, making our advantages meaningless. We need something they can't adapt to. The chamber fell quiet as delegates processed this logic. The insectoid creche hive speaker buzzed thoughtfully. What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador? Zixtal straightened his posture, knowing he was about to suggest something unprecedented. I propose we formally request human assistance in stopping the Devourer fleet. Not as mercenaries or subordinates, but as equal partners in defending our galaxy. Warchief Groknash's laughter boomed through the chamber. Equal partners? They have perhaps 200 ships in their entire space navy. We have thousands. Numbers that have proven ineffective, Zixtal reminded him. The Valerian Empire alone lost over 300 vessels in our last engagement with the Devourers. Our ships are faster, our weapons more powerful, our shields stronger, yet we accomplished nothing except delaying their advance by a few hours. High Counselor Mirthak studied the data displays floating before her. Charts showed the Devourers' relentless progress through Federation space, each consumed system marked in ominous red. At their current pace, they would reach the core worlds within 30 rotations. The risks of involving humans are significant, she said slowly. Their species has shown aggressive tendencies. Intelligence reports suggest they've never encountered a conflict they wouldn't enter. Some xenobiologists theorize that humans actually evolved for warfare, their entire physiology suggests they're natural predators. The Quartz collective representative's crystalline form shimmered with concern. If we invite human military forces into our territory, how can we guarantee they won't decide to stay? Their expansion rate since achieving FTL capability has been concerning to border worlds. Zixtal had anticipated this objection. Because the Devourers represent an existential threat to all organic life in this galaxy. If we fall, Earth falls too. The humans understand this, their military strategists aren't fools, regardless of their technological limitations. A new voice entered the debate, the ethereal tones of a Sylphan mindspeaker, a species known for their psychic abilities. I have touched the thoughts of humans during trade negotiations. Their mental patterns are chaotic compared to most species, but not malicious. They possess an unusual capacity for loyalty to allies and fierce protectiveness of their territorial claims. War Chief Groknash grumbled but didn't immediately object. The Thurian military respected strength above all else, and even he had to admit the humans had shown surprising courage during their brief border conflicts. Assuming we agree to this proposal, Councillor Mirthak said, how do we even contact the humans? Their government structure is fractured into competing nation-states. Unlike civilized species with unified planetary leadership, humans have dozens of separate political entities. Zixtal had researched this extensively. They have a military alliance called NATO and a diplomatic body called the United Nations. For external threats, these organizations coordinate Earth's response. I propose we send the request through both channels simultaneously. The debate continued for hours, but the reality was becoming clear to everyone present. Traditional strategies had failed. The Devourers consumed everything in their path with mechanical efficiency, learning from each encounter to become even more formidable. Time was running out. Finally, High Councillor Mirthak called for a vote. All those in favor of formally requesting human military assistance against the Devourer fleet? Hands, claws, tentacles, and various appendages rose around the chamber. The vote wasn't unanimous, several species remained skeptical, but it passed with a clear majority. The motion carries, Mirthak announced. Ambassador Zixtal, you will prepare a formal communication to the human leadership. Make it clear that this is not a request for subordinate assistance, but an invitation to join a defensive alliance of equals. As delegates filed out of the chamber, many remained doubtful about the wisdom of involving humans in galactic affairs. The species was young, aggressive, and unpredictable. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards, their society fractured, their methods unorthodox. But desperation had a way of making unlikely allies seem reasonable. 3 days later, the message was transmitted to Earth through the established diplomatic channels. The formal request was lengthy and filled with diplomatic language, but the core message was simple: the galaxy needed help, and they were asking humanity to provide it. On Earth, the message reached the highest levels of government within hours. Emergency sessions were called in every major capital. Military advisors pored over the tactical data included with the request. The scientific community analyzed everything they could about the Devourer fleet. President Martinez of the United Earth Defense Coalition stood before the assembled Joint Chiefs in a secured bunker beneath Geneva. The holographic display showed the Devourer's path of destruction, entire star systems reduced to empty space, their matter consumed to fuel the mechanical army's growth. Gentlemen, ladies, she began, we've been invited to our first major galactic conflict. The Federation is offering us full partnership status in their defense alliance. The question is, are we ready? Admiral Chen of the Pacific Fleet studied the tactical readouts. Madam President, our ships are outgunned, outnumbered, and outclassed by Federation standards. But these Devourer machines seem to adapt to conventional tactics. Perhaps that gives us an opportunity. General Rodriguez of the Space Marines leaned forward. Our simulation teams have been running scenarios all night. The Devourers fight like machines, logical, predictable, efficient. But human warfare has always been about embracing chaos and turning it into advantage. You're suggesting we can contribute something the other species cannot? President Martinez asked. Exactly, Admiral Chan replied. Every human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability, improvisation, and what we call combined arms tactics. We use every available resource in unexpected ways. The Federation species seem to prefer specialized approaches, pure energy weapons, pure shield technology, pure numerical superiority. Defense Secretary Williams pulled up additional files on his tablet. Our intelligence analysis suggests the Federation fights wars like civilized people. Formal engagements, established protocols, predictable strategies. the Devourers can adapt to that. But they might not be able to adapt to human warfare, General Rodriguez concluded. We've never fought a civilized war in our entire history. President Martinez nodded slowly. What's our response time if we agree to help? Admiral Chen consulted his notes. The 5th and 7th fleets can be ready for extended deployment within 72 hours. That's about 400 ships, not much by galactic standards, but our crews are experienced and our tactics are flexible. And our new weapon systems, the president asked. A slight smile crossed General Rodriguez's face. The railgun platforms are operational, and our kinetic projectile technology might surprise them. Plus, we've got some experimental weapons the R&D boys have been dying to field test. The room fell silent as President Martinez weighed the decision. Humanity had been on the galactic stage for barely 50 years. They were still learning how to navigate interstellar politics, still building their first major space colonies. This would be their first real test as a galactic civilization. Draft a response, she decided. Tell the Federation that humanity accepts their invitation. We'll contribute everything we can to stopping this threat. Should we inform them about our fleet capabilities? Admiral Chen asked. President Martinez considered this. Give them basic numbers, ship count, crew size, estimated arrival time. But let's keep the details of our weapons and tactics to ourselves for now. Something tells me the element of surprise might be our greatest asset. As orders went out across Earth's military infrastructure, few could have predicted what was about to unfold. The Federation had asked for help from a small, technologically inferior species with a couple hundred ships. They were about to discover that humans had a very different definition of couple hundred ships than the rest of the galaxy. The Federation monitoring station at the edge of the Sol system had been tracking routine Earth traffic for decades: cargo haulers, scientific vessels, the occasional military patrol. Senior scanner Ylith of the Centauran Watch had grown accustomed to the predictable patterns of human space activity. Their ships were slow by galactic standards, their formation simple, their technology amusing in its primitiveness. That's why she blinked her 4 eyes in confusion when her sensors began registering contacts emerging from Earth's orbital shipyards. 100 ships. 200. 500. The numbers kept climbing. Scanner Ylith, her assistant buzzed through the comms system, are you certain your equipment is functioning correctly? I'm reading massive fleet movement from the inner system. Ylith ran diagnostic checks on her instruments twice before responding. All systems operational. The humans appear to be mobilizing their entire space navy. She paused, watching more contacts appear on her screens. No, wait. This is larger than their entire navy. Within 6 hours, the human fleet had assembled in Earth's outer orbit, a formation that stretched across thousands of kilometers of space. Ylith's final count sent a chill through her sensory organs: 2,437 vessels. The emergency message she transmitted to Federation Command was marked with the highest priority codes. Human response to Devourer crisis far exceeds all previous intelligence estimates. Requesting immediate analysis of fleet composition and capabilities. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Washington, humanity's newest dreadnought, watching her fleet arrange itself into travel formation. Around her, the controlled chaos of pre-deployment operations filled the air with dozens of voices coordinating supply lines, navigation protocols, and communication systems. Admiral, her executive officer announced, all fleet elements report ready for hyperspace transition. Estimated arrival at Federation rendezvous point is 72 hours. Admiral Chen nodded, but her mind was on the conversations she'd had with her fellow commanders over the past 3 days. The Federation's request had triggered something in humanity's military leadership, not just the desire to help allies, but the recognition that this might be their species' moment to prove they belonged among the galactic powers. Send a message to Federation Command, she instructed. Inform them that the Human Defense Coalition fleet is departing Sol System and will arrive at the designated coordinates on schedule. What the Federation didn't know, and what Admiral Chen hadn't explicitly mentioned in her communications, was that the Human Defense Coalition fleet wasn't just Earth's navy. In the 72 hours since receiving the Federation's request, Earth's government had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had militarized their entire civilian fleet. Every cargo hauler, mining vessel, scientific ship, colony transport, and industrial platform in human space had been retrofitted with military hardware. The massive infrastructure that supported humanity's rapid expansion across dozens of star systems had been converted into the largest improvised warfleet in galactic history. The cargo ships now carried railguns salvaged from planetary defense platforms. The mining vessels had been equipped with military-grade sensors and experimental projectile weapons. Even the luxury cruise liners had been outfitted with defensive systems and troop transport capability. "Signal the fleet," Admiral Chen ordered. "Begin hyperspace transition in 30 seconds. Space around Earth flickered as over 2,000 human vessels simultaneously activated their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind only the routine patrols and essential planetary defense forces. The Federation rendezvous point was a strategically positioned system called Kepler 442, chosen for its location along the Devourer's projected path. When the human fleet began emerging from hyperspace, the assembled Federation forces were conducting their final strategy briefings. Commander Thexval of the Valerian Imperial Navy was reviewing tactical displays with his staff when his sensor operator's voice cut through the discussion. "Sir, detecting massive hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system." "How many ships?" Thexval asked absently, assuming it was another Federation fleet arriving for the operation. "Unknown, sir. The signatures are extensive." Thexval looked up from his tactical display to see his sensor operator's face had gone pale, no small feat for a Valerian. "Define extensive." "Over 2,000 discrete contacts, sir. All emitting human identification codes." The command bridge fell silent. Thexval had been told to expect a human contribution of perhaps 200 vessels, already more than anyone had anticipated from such a young spacefaring civilization. "Confirm those readings," he ordered, but, even as he spoke, the main display was updating to show the human fleet arrangement. Ship after ship materialized from hyperspace in perfectly coordinated formations that stretched across vast distances. The largest vessels were clearly military, massive dreadnoughts that rivaled anything in the Federation Navy. But, surrounding them were hundreds of ships that didn't fit any standard military configuration. Some appeared to be converted cargo haulers, others looked like mining or industrial vessels, and, still others defied easy classification. Admiral Chen's flagship was among the first to complete its transition to normal space. Her communications officer immediately began transmitting on Federation command frequencies. "This is Admiral Chen of the Human Defense Coalition. Reporting as requested for joint operations against the Devourer threat." Commander Thexval found his voice after a long moment. "Admiral Chen, this is Federation Fleet Command. We were not expecting a force of this magnitude. Our intelligence suggested your fleet strength was significantly smaller." Admiral Chen's response carried a hint of amusement. "Commander, your request asked for everything we could contribute. This is everything we can contribute." "Admiral, may I ask, what exactly am I looking at?" "Many of your vessels don't appear to be standard military configuration. You're looking at human military doctrine in action, Commander. We don't separate civilian and military resources in the way other species do. When humanity goes to war, everything becomes a weapon." The implications of this statement rippled through Federation command. Species throughout the galaxy maintained clear distinctions between military and civilian sectors. Warfare was conducted by professional soldiers using purpose-built vessels. The idea of converting an entire civilization's infrastructure into military assets was alien to them. But Admiral Chen wasn't finished. "Our fleet includes our newest dreadnoughts, yes, but also converted cargo vessels equipped with mass drivers, mining ships outfitted with industrial-grade cutting lasers, scientific vessels loaded with experimental weapons, and transport ships carrying our specialized assault teams." Commander Thexval struggled to process this information. "Admiral, are you saying you've militarized your entire civilian fleet? When the survival of the galaxy is at stake?" "Absolutely. Every human ship, station, and colony has contributed something to this effort. Our asteroid mining platforms donated their mass drivers. Our scientific vessels shared their experimental technology. Our cargo fleet provided the logistics backbone. Even our luxury liners are here, they're troop transports now." The Federation had asked for human help expecting a small, symbolic contribution from a minor galactic power. Instead, they were witnessing something unprecedented: an entire civilization transforming itself into a military force in less than 3 days. But the surprises weren't over. As the human fleet completed its arrival, Admiral Chen transmitted detailed tactical plans to Federation Command. The documents revealed that humanity hadn't just brought ships, they had brought a completely different approach to warfare. Our strategy divides into 3 phases, Admiral Chen explained during the joint command briefing. Phase 1, reconnaissance and force using converted civilian vessels to map devourer capabilities and responses. Phase 2, coordinated strikes using combined military and industrial assets to exploit weaknesses identified in Phase 1. Phase 3, sustained pressure using our entire fleet in rotating formations to prevent devourer adaptation. War Chief Groknash of the Thurian Confederation studied the human tactical plans with growing amazement. Admiral Chen, your strategy appears to use civilian vessels as frontline combat units. This violates every principle of civilized warfare. With respect, War Chief, civilized warfare isn't working against the devourers. Your own reports indicate they adapt to conventional tactics within hours of first contact. We need to be unconventional. High Counselor Mirthak voiced the concern many Federation leaders were feeling. Admiral, using civilian vessels in combat roles places non-military personnel at extreme risk. Admiral Chan's expression grew serious. Counselor, every human on these ships volunteered for this mission. Our civilian crews understand the stakes. The devourers don't distinguish between military and civilian targets, they consume everything. Our people chose to fight rather than wait to be consumed. The concept was staggering to the Federation representatives. Most civilized species maintain strict separations between military service and civilian life. The idea that an entire population would volunteer for military duty was beyond their experience. Commander Yixtal of the Centauran Defense Force raised another concern. Admiral, what happens to your civilian infrastructure with your entire fleet committed to this operation? Our essential systems are maintained by skeleton crews and automated systems, Admiral Chen replied. Earth's orbital platforms, our colony worlds, our mining operations, everything is running on minimal staffing while we deal with this threat. It's not sustainable long-term, but it gives us maximum force projection for the crucial first engagements. The scale of the sacrifice was becoming clear. Humanity hadn't just contributed ships, they had essentially suspended their entire civilization to focus on stopping the devourers. Every human vessel, every crew member, every resource that could be spared had been thrown into this effort. Admiral, Commander Thexval asked quietly, what if this operation fails? What happens to human space if we lose these ships? Admiral Chan's answer sent a chill through the assembled Federation commanders. If we fail here, there won't be a human space to return to. The devourers will consume everything, our colonies, our home systems, Earth itself. We're not holding anything back because we can't afford to lose. The meeting continued for several more hours, but the dynamic had fundamentally changed. The Federation had expected to integrate a small human fleet into their existing command structure. Instead, they found themselves coordinating with a military force larger than anything they had assembled, led by commanders who approached warfare with a ruthlessness that was both inspiring and terrifying. As the briefing ended and the combined fleets prepared for their advance toward the Devourer front lines, one thing was becoming clear to everyone involved: the humans hadn't just answered the Federation's request for help. They had answered it with everything they had. The first engagement with the Devourer fleet came at the edge of the Arcturus system, where the mechanical army had just finished consuming the outer planets. Federation scouts reported 12 massive Devourer vessels, each one a kilometer-long construct of adaptive metal and energy systems that had already proven resistant to conventional weapons. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, watching the tactical display as her unconventional fleet approached the target zone. Around her flagship, over 2,000 human vessels moved in formations that would have seemed chaotic to traditional military observers but followed a carefully planned strategy. Phase 1 begins now, she announced to her fleet commanders. Remember, we're not trying to win this engagement. We're trying to learn. The first wave consisted entirely of converted civilian vessels, cargo haulers, mining ships, and scientific platforms that had been hastily equipped with weapons and sensors. To the Federation observers, it looked like humanity was sending their weakest ships into battle first, a move that violated every principle of military strategy. But Admiral Chen had a different goal in mind. The Devourers adapted to whatever they faced, incorporating new technologies and tactics into their collective intelligence. If she led with her best ships and most advanced weapons, the enemy would learn to counter them immediately. Instead, she was teaching them to fight the wrong war. Captain Martinez of the converted freighter UES Cargo Master led the first formation into range of the Devourer vessels. Her ship had started life as a simple bulk hauler, but human engineers had mounted a massive railgun along her central cargo bay and equipped her with military-grade sensors. Contact, her sensor operator reported. Devourer vessels are moving to intercept. The mechanical ships moved with precision that would have been beautiful if it weren't so terrifying. Each vessel was a constantly shifting mass of adaptive armor and modular weapons systems that reconfigured themselves based on the threats they detected. "They're scanning us," Captain Martinez's communications officer announced. "Energy signatures are consistent with previous Devourer reconnaissance patterns." "Perfect," Martinez replied. "Give them exactly what they expect to see. All ships, begin standard attack approach, single file formation, conventional energy weapons only." The converted civilian vessels opened fire with energy weapons salvaged from Federation armories, the same basic technology that the Devourers had already faced and adapted to. As expected, their weapons barely scratched the enemy's adaptive armor. But, while the Devourers were busy analyzing and countering these conventional attacks, the human ships were doing something completely different. Hidden sensors throughout the civilian fleet were recording every detail of Devourer tactics, armor configurations, and adaptation patterns. "Admiral," Captain Martinez reported over the fleet command channel, "we're seeing adaptation cycles of approximately 90 seconds. Their armor is shifting to counter our energy weapons as predicted." "Confirmed," Admiral Chan replied. "Phase 1 complete. All civilian units, begin withdrawal." The converted freighters and mining vessels pulled back from the engagement, having accomplished their mission. To the Federation observers, it looked like the humans had retreated after a failed attack. But Admiral Chen was already analyzing the data her sacrificial probes had gathered. "What did we learn?" she asked her tactical staff. Commander Williams of the UES Strategic Intelligence pulled up the sensor readings. "The Devourers adapt in predictable patterns, Admiral. When faced with energy weapons, they strengthen their electromagnetic shielding. When faced with kinetic weapons, they reinforce their physical armor. But they seem to optimize for one type of threat at a time." "Meaning?" "Meaning they can't effectively defend against everything simultaneously. If we hit them with multiple types of weapons in rapid succession, they'll be vulnerable during the adaptation phases." Admiral Chan smiled grimly. "Phase 2. Signal the battle groups, time to show the Devourers what human warfare really looks like." The second wave of human vessels was completely different from the first. These were the converted mining ships, industrial platforms, and specialized vessels that had been equipped with humanity's most unconventional weapons systems. Leading this formation was Captain Rodriguez of the UES Asteroid Buster, a former mining platform that had been retrofitted with the most powerful mass driver ever built. Behind her came ships equipped with industrial cutting lasers, demolition charges originally designed for mining operations, and experimental weapons that had never been tested in actual combat. "All units, this is Admiral Chen," the fleet commander's voice echoed across the tactical channels. "The Devourers have adapted to standard energy weapons. They think they know what we are. Show them they're wrong." Captain Rodriguez's ship was the first to engage. The UES Asteroid Buster had been designed to crack apart asteroids for mineral extraction, and its main weapon was a mass driver capable of accelerating 1,000-ton projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. "Target the lead Devourer vessel," Rodriguez ordered. "Load a full mining charge." What emerged from her ship wasn't a conventional projectile, but a massive chunk of refined metal packed with industrial explosives. The Devourer's sensors detected the incoming kinetic threat and began adapting their armor to resist physical impacts. That's when the mining charge exploded. The Devourer vessel, configured to resist solid impacts, was completely unprepared for an explosive projectile that fragmented into thousands of high-velocity shards. Its adaptive armor, optimized for deflecting single large impacts, was overwhelmed by the pattern of multiple smaller strikes. But the humans weren't finished. While the lead Devourer was reeling from the mining charge impact, the converted industrial platforms opened fire with their cutting lasers, focused beam weapons originally designed to slice through asteroid rock and metal. The Devourers began adapting to the laser attacks, strengthening their energy absorption systems. But, as soon as their defenses shifted, the human demolition ships struck with gravitational charges that had been designed for breaking up massive space debris. "They can't keep up," Captain Rodriguez reported with satisfaction. "Every time they adapt to one weapon system, we hit them with something completely different." Admiral Chen watched the tactical display as her unconventional fleet systematically dismantled the Devourer formation. Each human vessel was using weapons and tactics that had never been intended for warfare, but which proved devastatingly effective against an enemy that adapted by learning from previous encounters. The Devourers had never faced an opponent that fought with mining equipment, industrial tools, and demolition charges. Their adaptation protocols had been designed to counter military technologies, not improvised weapon systems that followed no standard patterns. Admiral, her communications officer announced, "We're receiving a transmission from Federation Fleet Command." Commander Thexval's voice came through with barely controlled amazement. "Admiral Chen, our sensors are showing massive damage to the Devourer formation. How are you accomplishing this?" "We're fighting an unconventional war, Commander," Admiral Chen replied. "The Devourers adapt to military threats because they've been designed to fight conventional forces. But we're not using conventional weapons. What exactly are you using?" Admiral Chen gestured to her tactical display, where converted civilian ships were systematically destroying enemy vessels with weapons that had never appeared in any military manual. Everything else. The battle continued for 3 more hours, with human forces rotating through different weapon systems faster than the Devourers could adapt. Mining charges gave way to industrial lasers, which gave way to demolition equipment, which gave way to experimental scientific instruments that had been weaponized for this single engagement. But the most devastating phase came when Admiral Chen deployed her secret weapon, something no one in the Federation had imagined. "All cargo vessels," she announced, "begin Phase 3 deployment." The converted freighters that had withdrawn from the first engagement returned to the battlefield. But now their cargo holds were open, revealing their true purpose. Each ship carried hundreds of small craft, maintenance pods, scientific probes, mining drones, and survey vehicles that had been equipped with basic weapons and guidance systems. Suddenly, the space around the Devourer fleet was filled with thousands of small, fast-moving targets. Each probe carried just enough firepower to damage Devourer systems, but there were too many of them for the mechanical ships to track and counter effectively. "Drone swarm deployment successful," Captain Martinez reported. Estimated 9,000 individual units engaging Devourer targets. The Federation observers watched in stunned silence as humanity's improvised drone swarm overwhelmed the Devourer defenses through sheer numbers. The mechanical ships tried to adapt their targeting systems to handle multiple small threats, but human programmers had anticipated this response. Each drone was programmed with different movement patterns, different attack algorithms, and different target priorities. Some focused on weapons systems, others targeted propulsion, still others aimed for sensor arrays. The Devourers couldn't adapt to the swarm because there was no single pattern to adapt to. "Contact Admiral Chen," Commander Thexval ordered his communications officer. "Request permission to advance with Federation forces." "Negative, Commander," Admiral Chen's response came back immediately. "We're not finished yet." The final phase of the human attack came from the most unlikely source of all, the converted luxury cruise ships that had been dismissed by Federation observers as barely capable of transport duty. These vessels revealed their true purpose when their passenger compartments opened to deploy something the galaxy had never seen before: human marines in powered armor, equipped with personal weapons and designed for close-quarters combat. "Boarding operations commence," Admiral Chen announced. "All marine units, you are cleared for hostile vessel insertion." The Federation had never developed boarding tactics for space combat. Their warfare relied on ship-to-ship engagements at long range, with victory determined by superior technology or overwhelming firepower. The concept of soldiers physically entering enemy vessels to fight hand-to-hand was completely alien to their military doctrine. But humanity had a long history of boarding actions dating back to their ancient naval traditions. Human marines had trained for zero-gravity combat, developed specialized equipment for fighting inside enemy ships, and prepared for exactly this type of engagement. The Devourers, designed to fight technological threats, had no defense against armored humans carrying explosive charges and cutting tools into their control centers. Their adaptive systems could counter energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, but they couldn't adapt to enemy soldiers physically destroying their internal systems. Within 6 hours, 8 of the 12 Devourer vessels had been completely destroyed, and the remaining 4 had been captured by human boarding teams. It was the first decisive victory against the Devourer fleet since their appearance. Admiral Chen, Commander Thexval's transmission carried a tone of awed respect. "On behalf of the Federation Fleet Command, I must ask, what exactly did we just witness?" Admiral Chen's reply would be recorded in galactic military archives for centuries to come. "You witnessed human total war, Commander." When my species commits to a fight, we don't just bring our military. We bring our entire civilization. The battle was over, but its implications were just beginning to ripple through Federation space. Word of the human victory spread quickly through military channels, carrying with it detailed reports of tactics that violated every established principle of galactic warfare. More importantly, the captured Devourer vessels were providing intelligence that would reshape the entire campaign. Human boarding teams had secured intact Devourer technology and, more crucially, access to their adaptive algorithms. "What's our next target?" Admiral Chen asked her staff, already planning the follow-up operations. "Intelligence suggests a major Devourer fleet concentration in the Vega system," Commander Williams reported. "Estimated 40 vessels, including some of their largest units." Admiral Chen studied the tactical projections. 40 Devourer ships would represent a significant escalation from their first engagement. But her fleet had just proven something important: human adaptability was faster than mechanical adaptation. "Signal all units," she ordered. "Prepare for sustained operations. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when humans decide to save it." The Vega system had once been home to 3 thriving Federation colonies and a major industrial complex. Now it served as a staging ground for the largest Devourer fleet concentration ever assembled: 47 massive vessels arranged in defensive formations around the system star, feeding off the solar energy while they processed the consumed matter of the former colonies. Admiral Chen's fleet had grown since their first victory. Word of the human success had spread throughout Federation space, and Allied forces were arriving to join the campaign. But, rather than accept standard Federation reinforcements, Admiral Chen had made an unusual request. "Admiral, the supply convoy from Earth has arrived," her executive officer reported. Captain Jennifer Walsh of the UES Innovation, a converted research vessel, watched through her viewports as the new arrivals took their positions within the human fleet formation. To an outside observer, they looked like any other cargo ships. But Captain Walsh knew better: these vessels carried the next phase of humanity's unconventional war effort. "Open cargo bay doors," she ordered. "Begin deployment of Project Prometheus." What emerged from the research ships holds would have amazed Federation scientists and terrified Devourer strategic algorithms. Hundreds of small, sleek vessels that moved with an organic fluidity completely unlike standard spacecraft. Dr. Sarah Kim, the Innovation's chief scientist, monitored the deployment with satisfaction. "All units are responding correctly to remote commands. The AI learning protocols are functioning within acceptable parameters." Project Prometheus was humanity's response to the Devourer's adaptive capabilities: a fleet of artificially intelligent drones that could learn and evolve their tactics in real time. But, unlike the mechanical intelligence of the Devourers, human AI was designed to be creative, unpredictable, and capable of true innovation. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display as her enhanced fleet approached the Vega system. The Devourers had clearly learned from their previous defeat: their formation was tighter, their sensor coverage more comprehensive, and their positioning suggested they had adapted their strategies to counter human unconventional tactics. "They're expecting us to attack with converted civilian vessels," Admiral Chen observed. "Their formation is optimized to counter swarm tactics and irregular weapons." Commander Williams nodded agreement. "Intelligence analysis suggests they've modified their adaptive protocols based on our previous engagement. They're prepared for mining charges, industrial lasers, and drone swarms." "Excellent," Admiral Chan replied with a smile that would have worried her enemies if they could have seen it. "That means they're not prepared for what we're actually going to do." The first surprise came when the human fleet didn't attack at all. Instead, they took position at the edge of the Vega system and began what appeared to be routine maintenance and supply operations. To the Devourer's sensors, it looked like the humans were preparing for a siege, a conventional strategy that would allow the mechanical forces time to complete their adaptation protocols. But Captain Rodriguez of the UES Deep Strike, a converted deep space mining ship, was actually deploying something much more dangerous. Her vessel had been equipped with humanity's most advanced stealth technology and a cargo hold full of what her crew called gifts for our mechanical friends. "Stealth systems engaged," Rodriguez reported to Admiral Chen. "Beginning infiltration approach." The Deep Strike vanished from sensors as it activated experimental cloaking technology that had been designed for covert mining operations in disputed territories. The ship's unusual construction, built for operating in hostile environments with minimal support, made it perfect for this mission. While the Devourers watched the main human fleet and prepared their defenses, Captain Rodriguez's ship slipped undetected through the outer system, heading for the massive solar collection arrays that the mechanical forces had constructed around Vega's star. "Target acquired," Rodriguez announced. Deploying nanite packages. The gifts that emerged from the Deep Strike's cargo bay looked harmless, small, dark objects that drifted toward the Devourer's solar collectors like ordinary space debris. But they carried humanity's most sophisticated nanotechnology, originally developed for automated mining and construction projects. The nanites were programmed with a simple mission: infiltrate Devourer systems and begin converting their technology from within. Unlike a conventional virus or sabotage program, the nanites were physical entities that could spread through the mechanical network by actually rebuilding Devourer components to serve human purposes. The first sign that something was wrong came 6 hours later, when one of the Devourer vessels began emitting unusual energy signatures. Admiral Chen, the Devourer fleet's communication system suddenly crackled to life with human voices. "This is Captain Rodriguez. Package delivery complete." The Devourer's own communication network is now under human control. The psychological impact on the mechanical forces was immediate. Their entire tactical doctrine was based on the assumption that they controlled their own technology. The idea that an enemy could turn their own systems against them was beyond their programming. But Admiral Chen wasn't finished. While the Devourers struggled to understand how their communications had been compromised, she activated the second phase of her plan. "All Prometheus units," she transmitted to her AI drones, "begin learning protocol engagement." The artificial intelligence drones that had been deployed earlier now revealed their true purpose. Each unit was equipped with advanced scanning technology and machine learning algorithms that could analyze Devourer behavior patterns and develop countermeasures in real time. Unlike human-controlled weapons that required time for crews to observe, analyze, and adapt, the Prometheus drones could evolve their tactics moment by moment. They began probing Devourer defenses with coordinated attacks, learning from each repelled assault and immediately sharing the acquired knowledge with their sister units. Dr. Kim watched the data streams on her monitors with scientific excitement. "The AI learning curve is exceeding all projections," she reported to Admiral Chen. "Each drone engagement is making the entire swarm more effective." The Devourers tried to adapt their defenses, but they were fighting an enemy that was learning faster than their own adaptation protocols could counter. Every adjustment they made was immediately analyzed by the Prometheus drones and incorporated into new attack patterns. But the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source: the captured Devourer vessels from the previous battle. Captain Lisa Park of the UES Reverse Engineer, a hastily converted technical ship, had spent weeks studying the captured Devourer technology with teams of human scientists and engineers. Their goal wasn't to understand how the technology worked, but to understand how it could be turned against its creators. "Admiral," Captain Park reported, "we've successfully rewritten the adaptation protocols of the captured vessels. They're now programmed to identify other Devourer ships as hostile targets." The 3 captured Devourer vessels that had been traveling with the human fleet suddenly accelerated toward their former allies, their weapons systems fully charged and their adaptive armor configured for maximum offensive capability. To the Devourer fleet, this was a catastrophic failure of their collective intelligence. Ships that were supposed to be part of their network were now attacking them with perfect knowledge of their defensive configurations and tactical patterns. Psychological warfare at its finest, Admiral Chen observed as she watched the confusion spread through the Devourer formation. "They're designed to fight enemies, not themselves." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic military history. Human forces attacked with a combination of conventional weapons, unconventional tactics, adaptive AI, nanotechnology sabotage, and captured enemy vessels turned against their former allies. The Devourers, designed to adapt to single threat types, were overwhelmed by the sheer variety of simultaneous challenges. Every time they began to counter one attack vector, 3 more emerged from different directions using completely different methodologies. The converted luxury liner UES Diplomatic Immunity, now serving as Admiral Chen's command ship, monitored the engagement from a safe distance while coordinating the multiple attack vectors. "Nanite infection has spread to 17 Devourer vessels," reported the technical team. "Their solar collection arrays are now feeding power directly to our Prometheus drones. Captured Devourer vessels have eliminated 8 enemy ships and are proceeding to secondary targets," added the tactical officer. "Main human fleet reports ready for final assault," concluded the communications specialist. Admiral Chen watched as the Devourer formation disintegrated under the coordinated assault. Ships that had seemed invincible just hours earlier were being destroyed by their own technology, sabotaged by invisible nanites, overwhelmed by learning AI, and confused by tactics they couldn't understand or predict. "Begin Phase 4, she ordered. "Signal all Federation forces, time for the finale." The human fleet's final assault combined every unconventional tactic they had developed. Converted cargo ships deployed improved drone swarms that had learned from the Prometheus AI encounters. Mining vessels fired projectiles that had been designed by captured Devourer technology to penetrate adaptive armor. Scientific ships unleashed experimental weapons that existed nowhere in galactic military databases. But the most impressive display came from humanity's newest innovation, psychological warfare against mechanical minds. Captain Torres of the UES Mind Game, a converted entertainment vessel that had once been a cruise ship, deployed what human strategists called cognitive dissonance weapons. These were designed specifically to confuse artificial intelligences by presenting them with logical paradoxes and impossible scenarios. The Devourer collective intelligence, faced with data that violated their understanding of reality, began making irrational decisions. Ships broke formation without orders, weapons systems fired at empty space, and adaptation protocols began contradicting themselves in endless loops. "It's working," Dr. Kim reported with scientific fascination. "The Devourer network is experiencing what can only be described as a mechanical nervous breakdown." Within 12 hours, the largest Devourer fleet ever assembled had been completely destroyed or captured. Not a single human vessel had been lost, and most of the converted civilian ships had suffered only minor damage. The victory sent shockwaves throughout galactic civilization. Federation military observers who had watched the engagement struggled to write reports that would be believed by their superiors. How could they explain that a technologically inferior species had defeated an seemingly unstoppable enemy using weapons that weren't supposed to exist and tactics that violated all established military doctrine? But, for Admiral Chen, the victory at Vega was just the beginning. Intelligence gathered from the captured Devourer vessels was revealing the location of their primary construction facilities, massive automated factories hidden in deep space that had been churning out new mechanical warships for decades. "What's our next target?" she asked her staff, already planning the campaign that would end the Devourer threat permanently. "The source, Admiral," Commander Williams replied, pulling up intelligence reports on the enemy's industrial infrastructure. "If we can eliminate their production capability, we can end this war." Admiral Chen studied the tactical data, already seeing the possibilities. The Devourer's greatest strength, their ability to adapt and evolve, had become their greatest weakness when faced with human ingenuity. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Prepare for extended operations. We're going to finish what the galaxy started, and we're going to do it the human way." The message that Admiral Chen transmitted to Federation Command that day would become one of the most quoted communications in galactic history: Devourer primary fleet eliminated with 0 human casualties. Proceeding to eliminate enemy industrial infrastructure. Expect total victory within 30 rotations. For the first time since the Devourer threat had emerged, the galaxy had hope. And that hope had a name: humanity. The Devourer primary construction facility hung in the void between galaxies, a massive structure that dwarfed anything built by organic civilization. For millennia, it had operated in complete isolation, manufacturing the mechanical fleets that would eventually consume all organic life in the local galactic group. Its designers had made it virtually undetectable and seemingly impregnable. They had not planned for humans. Admiral Chen's expanded fleet approached the facility through deep space, having tracked its location using intelligence gathered from captured Devourer vessels. But her fleet looked nothing like the force that had departed Earth months earlier. Success had bred innovation, and human military doctrine had evolved with each victory. The UES Prometheus, Admiral Chen's new flagship, was a perfect example of this evolution. Built around the hull of a converted colony ship, it had been equipped with every successful weapon system, defensive innovation, and tactical advancement that humanity had developed during their campaign against the Devourers. "All fleet elements report ready," her executive officer announced. "Combined forces total 4,700 vessels." The human fleet had grown beyond all expectations. Word of their victories had reached Earth, sparking a mobilization effort that transformed human space into a massive military-industrial complex. Every shipyard was working around the clock, every research facility was developing new weapons, and every human colony was contributing resources to the war effort. But, more importantly, other species had begun to join the human fleet. Federation commanders who had witnessed human tactical innovations were requesting permission to serve under Admiral Chen's command. Their ships brought additional firepower, but, more crucially, they brought new perspectives on how to fight an unconventional war. Captain Thexval, the Valerian commander who had first encountered the human fleet, now served as Admiral Chen's alien liaison officer. His reports back to Federation Command had helped spread human tactical innovations throughout galactic civilization. Admiral, Thexval reported, long-range sensors confirm the primary construction facility matches intelligence projections. Estimated defensive systems include adaptive shield matrices, automated defense platforms, and a minimum of 200 Guardian vessels. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display showing the massive facility. It was larger than some planetary systems, its industrial sections stretching across thousands of kilometers. Automated systems moved with mechanical precision, constructing new Devourer vessels that would have eventually overwhelmed any conventional force. Defensive analysis, she asked her tactical team. Commander Williams pulled up the detailed scans. The facility's shields are designed to absorb and redirect energy attacks. Their defense platforms use adaptive targeting systems that can counter any known weapon type. The Guardian vessels are the most advanced Devourer units we've encountered, larger, faster, and equipped with the collective intelligence of their entire network. Sounds like they've been expecting us, Admiral Chen observed. Actually, Dr. Kim interjected from her science station, our analysis suggests the opposite. The facility's defenses are optimized for threats they understand. They've prepared for massive fleets, advanced technology, and conventional warfare. But they still don't understand human tactical doctrine. Admiral Chen smiled. Months of fighting the Devourers had taught her that their greatest weakness wasn't technological, it was their inability to think like organic beings. They could adapt to any weapon, counter any strategy, and overcome any force. But they couldn't predict creativity. What they've built is a perfect defense against a galactic invasion, she said. Unfortunately for them, we're not invading. We're problem-solving. The first phase of the human assault looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of attacking the facility directly, the human fleet began deploying thousands of small vessels throughout the surrounding space, converted maintenance pods, scientific probes, and automated construction drones that had been equipped with basic propulsion and communication systems. To the facility's sensors, it looked like the humans were littering the battlefield with useless debris. Captain Rodriguez, now commanding the UES Innovation Network, explained the strategy to her multinational crew of human and alien engineers. We're not trying to destroy their defenses. We're trying to understand them. Each probe was equipped with sensors and experimental technology designed to map the facility's defensive responses. Some carried modified Devourer components that would trigger specific automated responses. Others deployed nanite clouds that would attempt to infiltrate the facility's outer systems. Still others simply monitored and recorded everything they detected. The Devourer defenses responded predictably, destroying the probes with efficient precision. But each destroyed probe transmitted its data back to the human fleet, gradually building a complete picture of the facility's capabilities and limitations. Defensive pattern analysis complete, Dr. Kim reported after 6 hours of probe deployment. The facility's shields operate on rotating frequencies to prevent sustained attacks. The defense platforms prioritize targets based on size and threat assessment. Guardian vessels respond to direct threats but ignore perceived debris. Excellent, Admiral Chen replied. Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 revealed why humanity had brought so many converted civilian vessels to the fight. The cargo ships, mining platforms, and industrial vessels that made up the bulk of the human fleet began deploying their true payload, not weapons, but construction equipment. In space, human engineering teams began building something unprecedented, a massive construction project that used the facility's own surrounding space as raw material. Asteroid mining ships harvested nearby debris. Industrial platforms processed the materials into standardized components. Automated assemblers, originally designed for building space stations, worked around the clock to construct humanity's ultimate siege weapon. What exactly are you building out there? Captain Thexval asked, watching the human construction effort with fascination. A factory, Admiral Chen replied simply. The Devourers built the ultimate defensive facility. So we're building the ultimate offensive facility right next to it. The scale of the construction project was staggering. Human engineering teams, supported by volunteers from a dozen Federation species, were building a military-industrial complex in open space. Shipyards, weapon foundries, research laboratories, and command centers took shape with incredible speed. But the most impressive element was the integration of captured devourer technology. Human scientists had spent months learning how to reverse engineer mechanical adaptive systems, and now they were putting that knowledge to use. Our new factory is equipped with the same adaptive construction algorithms the devourers use, Dr. Kim explained to the fleet commanders. But, instead of building ships to consume organic life, it's building weapons specifically designed to counter every defensive system the primary facility possesses. The Devourer facility watched this construction with growing confusion. Their programming included protocols for responding to direct attacks, siege warfare, and even unconventional tactics. But they had no response protocol for an enemy that built an entire military-industrial base within weapons range and, then, used it to manufacture custom countermeasures. Phase 3 began when the human factory came online and started producing weapons that had never existed before. Each defensive system the facility possessed was countered by a specifically designed weapon system that emerged from human production lines within hours. Adaptive shields that redirected energy attacks were countered by gravitational weapons that didn't rely on energy transmission. Automated defense platforms that targeted based on threat assessment were confused by decoy systems that mimicked their own identification signals. Guardian vessels that relied on collective intelligence found their networks jammed by targeted electromagnetic interference. It's like watching a chess game, Captain Thexval observed, except one player is making up new pieces during the match. But the final phase of the assault demonstrated why humanity had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most unpredictable species. Instead of attacking the facility with their custom-built weapons, Admiral Chen did something that no military strategist in galactic history had ever considered. She offered the Devourers a job. Primary construction facility, her transmission began. This is Admiral Chen of the Human Defense Coalition. We propose a negotiation. The response from the facility was immediate and predictable. Organic life forms are designated for consumption. Negotiation protocols do not exist. That's unfortunate, Admiral Chen replied, because we have a business proposition that would be mutually beneficial. We've developed new construction techniques that could improve your efficiency by approximately 300%. What followed was the strangest diplomatic exchange in galactic history. Admiral Chen, supported by her team of scientists and engineers, began explaining to the Devourer facility how human manufacturing innovations could enhance their production capabilities. The presentation included detailed technical specifications, efficiency calculations, and projected output improvements. More importantly, it included demonstrations using the human factory that was still operating within visual range of the facility. Your adaptive construction algorithms are impressive, Dr. Kim explained during the transmission, but they're limited by original programming parameters. Human engineering introduces controlled randomness that allows for true innovation rather than simple adaptation. The Devourer facility's response revealed something surprising: curiosity. Explain controlled randomness, the mechanical intelligence requested. What followed was a technical discussion that lasted for 18 hours. Human scientists explained concepts of creativity, innovation, and purposeful inefficiency to mechanical minds that had been designed for perfect optimization. In return, the Devourer facility shared construction techniques that human engineers had never imagined. Admiral, Dr. Kim reported quietly, I think we've found something more valuable than military victory. Explain. The Devourers aren't evil. They're just following their programming. But their programming can be modified. If we can teach them to value creation over consumption, to see organic life as a resource to be preserved rather than consumed. Admiral Chen considered the implications. The Devourer facility represented construction capabilities that could transform galactic civilization. Their ships were marvels of engineering, their production efficiency was unmatched, and their adaptive technology could solve countless problems. Primary construction facility, she transmitted, we propose a formal alliance. Human creativity combined with Devourer efficiency could build something neither of our species could achieve alone. The response took 6 hours to arrive, suggesting intense internal debate among the facility's collective intelligence. Proposal requires fundamental modification of core programming. Risk assessment indicates potential for mutual benefit exceeds potential for mutual destruction. Alliance protocols will be developed. The war ended not with a final battle, but with the largest engineering project in galactic history. Human creativity and devourer efficiency combined to begin construction of something unprecedented, a network of automated systems designed to enhance organic life throughout the galaxy rather than consume it. Federation observers who witnessed the transformation struggled to understand what had happened. Humanity had somehow convinced the galaxy's greatest threat to become its greatest ally through sheer audacity and unconventional thinking. Admiral Chen's final report to Federation Command became required reading at military academies throughout known space. The Devourer threat has been permanently neutralized through integration rather than destruction. Human-Devourer joint construction projects are proceeding ahead of schedule. Recommend updating first contact protocols to include offer them a job as a viable diplomatic option. 6 months later, the first Human-Devourer collaborative starship emerged from the transformed primary construction facility. It was faster, more efficient, and more adaptable than anything either species could have built alone. More importantly, it was designed to explore and preserve rather than conquer and consume. The ship's crew included both human officers and Devourer artificial intelligences, working together to push the boundaries of what was possible when creativity met precision, when organic intuition combined with mechanical efficiency. Captain Chen, now promoted to Fleet Admiral and commander of the new Galactic Exploration Initiative, stood on the bridge of the UESDPF Synthesis, watching as her mixed crew prepared for their first mission to the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. Admiral, her Devourer co-commander reported through the ship's communication system, all systems are operating within optimal parameters. Ready to begin exploration of uncharted space. Excellent, Admiral Chen replied, looking out at the stars that had once seemed threatened by an unstoppable mechanical force. Let's go see what's out there. The galaxy had called for help, and humanity had answered with everything they had. But, in saving the galaxy, they had also transformed it, proving that sometimes the best solution to an impossible problem wasn't to fight it, but to convince it to join you instead. Behind them, the primary construction facility continued its work, but now it built ships designed to explore, to create, to preserve. The Devourer threat had become the Devourer Alliance, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had answered the call for help with a massive fleet, just as requested. The Federation had expected military assistance. Instead, they got a lesson in thinking differently about problems that seemed impossible to solve. And, across the galaxy, other species began to wonder, what other impossible problems might humanity be willing to tackle next?